Good evening to the members of SLIC. It's a pleasure to address you on some pertinent issues involving agriculture. No stranger to you all, I'm Mario Casimir, Division of Agriculture. I was asked to address a couple of pertinent issues, so I'll get them one by one. The first issue I was asked to address was the issue of the backyard gardening program. The backyard gardening program was a concept developed by the Ministry of Agriculture as a response to the COVID-19 threat and presence, basically as an immediate response in terms of ensuring food security. So we designed the program specifically addressing the vulnerable groups, the elderly, the single-headed households in the rural as well as the urban communities. There was a very, very nice response to the program with regards to the registration. There was an influx of people registering. And at the end of the exercise, we ended up with some 2,700 plus registered participants from across Dominica. And hence the ministry encountered and engaged in the production of seedlings, which would then be distributed via the extension services to the registered participants. This program, in terms of the distribution of seedlings, is still ongoing. To date, we have distributed in excess of 150,000 seedlings or thereabouts to just under 1,000 plus farmers. Yeah, we think about this if the numbers add up right. But the point is, the program is a program which has tremendous impact and potential in terms of ensuring food security, and hence the ministry is in deep consideration with regards to making it a recurrent activity within the annual work program of activities. We saw, for example, a very high percentage, 56% of the participants were women. We were distributing on average, we distributed actually 26 different crop varieties across the vegetable families. And on average, we were giving out at least 49 seedling plants per house, per registered person in terms of a backyard response. So these numbers are encouraging in terms of what the potential of such a program can do. Mind you that there are different programs of such natures across the Caribbean as a direct response to the COVID presence. So yes, ours is not necessarily novel, but very, very innovative in terms of the response and the acceptance of the general public. So here, hats off to the ministry and hats off to the people who actually participated. We know and we are very much aware that there are still a number of people who have not been impacted in terms of their registration and the receiving of seedlings, but ensure that this is an ongoing process. So as we speak, we strive to ensure that we could at least complete in the first phase, and we say first phase quote unquote because like we said, we are putting a proposal towards the ministry for them to consider it as an annual recurrent. But we hope that in the first phase we could actually accomplish our objective by the end of the financial year, this year, July. So that is the objective. Backyard gardening. Very interesting concept because it blends in well with the whole concept of organic agriculture and the importance of the avoidance of a lot of the synthetic agro inputs associated with conventional crop production, and the opportunities that Dominica, as one of the last remaining natural laboratories, presents itself in terms of the development of these alternative inputs. Primary for obvious reasons is the abundance of flora in Dominica, and hence our comparative and competitive ability in terms of the production of high quality compost. And when I talk about high quality compost, composting in itself is a natural process in terms of the decomposition of organic matter, but it can be accelerated by the anthropogenic activity, such as the turning of the piles frequently by human activities and stuff like that. So the combination of green and browns, green your nitrogen sources, brown your carbon sources, is very, very critical in ensuring the quick breakdown of the compost pile. So when we talk about green materials and nitrogenous materials, we talk about, for example, fresh grass clippings, your discards from your kitchen waste, farm waste, and brown material, anything brown, shredded branches, twigs, cardboard, paper, just to name a few stuff. And the ideal ratios is basically 50-50. ensuring that you have a lot of aeration in the pile. Because again, we see a lot of static piles as differentiated from a very active pile. And an active pile is basically a pile which is actually has some human management activity associated with it. A passive pile, yeah, we cut the grass and we heap it up and we pile it up to the end of the garden, and in 2-3 months it will break down over a course of time. Unfortunately, sometimes the combination of materials does not ensure its quick turnover and breakdown. Too much carbon in one pile will have a very, very long rate of decomposition. Too much nitrogen in the next pile will have a very, very high and low rate of decomposition. And hence the insurance of that 50% ratio of your carbon and your nitrogen sources. Paying close attention to your humidity checks. A basic test that we employ in composting is the squeeze test. We do not actually apply too much water or over apply water to the pile, whereby by squeezing a handful of composting material, you see the water actually readily draining. That's an indication that really and truly the pile is probably too saturated with water. So we need to ensure that, because in Dominican conditions, we should actually achieve a very stable and a mature pile within an 8 to 10 week period, depending on your geographic location. In the wetter areas, it might take a little longer, but in the drier areas, it could take within 8 to 10 weeks. Yeah, in terms of the maturity and the stability of the pile. And what we mean about the stability of the pile, basically, composting is a process which actually generates a lot of energy through the production of heat. So in the early composting stages, you're going to see that the temperatures are rising very, very, very rapidly. So within the first couple of days, first 3-5 days, that temperature will actually be in excess of 100 degrees Celsius. And it will be maintained like that for at least a couple of weeks in terms of the active decomposition of that organic material. And as the pile ages and matures, you will actually see that the cooling of the pile, at least in the periphery of the pile, starts to be accomplished, notwithstanding the tremendous heat you might find in the inner core of the pile. Generally, we tend to see that the material is not differentiated from its original source. I.e., you cannot actually differentiate what was actually originally put in, from the banana peel as opposed to the grapefruit skin. That is basically when conditions are ideal and the management procedures and processes are actually up to par. So we have to be mindful of that. But yeah, very, very rudimentary in its process, but paying attention to these little glitches in terms of your humidity levels and the aeration, because a static pile in itself is one where the absence of oxygen is very, very prominent, and hence the production of sulfuric gases. So you get that rotten fowl smell in terms of a rotten egg. That's an indication that the hydrogen sulfides are actually being entrapped as they break down in terms of the organic matter. They are not being turned over, and hence this entrapment of gases there is actually a negative in terms of composting. So hence the assurance that the aeration of the pile is actually performed routinely. And what we mean by routinely, at least once a week over that 8 to 10 week period. And hence the importance of aeration as a complementary to the incorporation of your greens and your browns, because in practice what would actually happen is that you would on a weekly basis incorporate your greens and your browns in the proportions up to, let's say, 5 weeks, and then for the last 4 to 5 remaining weeks you would just manage that pile by turning it over, because the incorporation of too much fresh material into the pile as it's breaking down will not, at the end of the process, guarantee that you have a uniform and homogeneous product. So some parts of the pile might be well broken down, whereas some parts might not, because the continuous incorporation of fresh material will not break down in terms of its chronological sequence. So hence, there has to be a cutoff point in terms of the incorporation of fresh material into that pile. And that usually takes place around the 5th week, 5th week so. And then the pile is just managed with regards to its weekly turnover, ensuring that the oxygen is critical, because again, composting is reliant on what? The biological breakdown of organic material, which is actually the primary function of microbial populations. So the supply of oxygen will ensure that the microbial community there is kept alive and vibrant in terms of the activity that it has to perform. Yeah, where we go from there? Composting sites and management. Because remember now, at least when we start to look at it from a semi-commercial to a commercial perspective, there, a composting site can easily become an excellent field if not managed properly. And because we're talking about the putrefaction of organic material, and the production of methane gas is of concern. The production of the leachate and the management of the leachate is the next concern. And again, if managed properly, again ensuring that what you incorporate into the compost pile, because there are different levels of composting. You can go from a level 1 to a level 5 composting, and a level 5 composting usually entails the composting of highly, what we will call hazardous, not necessarily hazardous, but questionable material, to include animal origin, not necessarily the feces, but blood and fecals and offals and stuff like that, which are very good sources of protein, and when broken down will incorporate significant percentages of nitrogen. But again, the underscoring point there is the management of that material. So a level 1 composting facility would literally just deal with organic greens. And when I say organic greens, I actually differentiate organic greens to the simplest levels. Grass clippings, shrubs. We do not even delve into kitchen waste, because kitchen waste in itself is very, 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 very particular. Kitchen waste can be a very and an easily source of heavy metals, and if not managed properly, again, can be a source of contamination for your composting pile. So yes, kitchen waste has a readily source, but the management, ensuring that the pile is adequately turned over and the ratios in terms of what we are incorporating into the pile are maintained. That green and brown ratio that has to be ensured. Because trust me, yeah, you will take a 5-gallon pail of dashing skin and try to compost it there. It will seem like it's from composting, but again, not like how we would want it to. So these are some of the basic insights into composting that we should be aware of. Again, there are different styles of composting: in-vessel systems versus windrow systems. For household functions, the in-vessel system seems to be a very, very, very perfect system, because again, it ensures the whole hygiene and sanitation aspect. Like they would suggest, in-vessel, everything is done within a closed circuit system. So a 45-gallon drum, these blue drums, is easily converted into a composting tumbler system by simply having a long iron rod or coated with some kind of PVC, because again, you would not want to expose the iron rod into the composting material, because obviously it will erode. So a long iron rod coated with a plastic PVC, having the 45-gallon drum become a tumbler, is an easy way of ensuring and managing your kitchen garden waste. So there are some of the techniques that we can employ. There are more sophisticated techniques, like whereby you can actually purchase compost making systems. But in principle, ensuring a green, your nitrogen to carbon ratios, your oxygen supplies, and your humidity, and up to par, you should be going along doing some great composting. Again, tying into the whole concept of this organic farming and nature by farming, because the avoidance of chemicals and synthetic chemicals in the farming system is critical. Studies have proven that the phytoactivities of foods are enhanced by the incorporation of nutrient sources from an organic source. And that is the argument. Because from a scientific point of view, a plant does not differentiate the uptake of nutrients from an organic versus an inorganic source. Actually, a plant takes up nutrients in an inorganic source. Right? So let's ponder on that. Plant takes up nutrients in inorganic ion forms. So the whole issue of organic farming is really and truly in terms of the phytochemical activity, in terms of the phytofunctional enhancement of foods. Because it's proven that the shelf life of organic foods is evident. And hence the nutritional quality of these foods here is underscored. But there are significant amount of scientific literature which has actually proven that to the disbeliefs of the conventional scientific world. So these are some of the things that we have to be ever mindful of, because again, the continuous use of synthetics tend to lead to a lot of soil pollutants, heavy metals in particular, from the use of phosphates and glyphosate, the use of agrochemicals and synthetic agrochemicals. Going back to the whole issue of organics, and people think, yeah, organics is the alternative. Yes, it is the only, and it is the natural form of farming practiced by all ancient societies which were exposed to the techniques of farming. But we have to be ever mindful that the sources of nutrients that we use in organic farming systems can be detrimental to human health. And hence, the safety in terms of the use of organic material cannot be underscored. Yeah, because we see the tendency because it's organic material, we'll use our bare hands, and we tend to use composting material quite indifferent from when we were using synthetics. On the contrary, the handling and the use of organic material, is of biological origin. So we should be mindful that, it can actually harm our human health. So the handling of composted material, animal manure and feces is critical to ensure and protect our human health and wellness. Hence, the use of personal protective equipment in terms of gloves, masks, is in a composting facility is not critical, but it is like next to nothing. You do not use that, because you would be exposing yourself to all these toxic fumes continuously in terms of your management of your compost pile. So these are some of the tips and bits that we have to be mindful of, marrying everything. It's about human health, the protection of the environment, as well as the production of good and nutritious quality food, which will then lead now to the whole issue of the reduction in the prevalence of NCDs and all these likes and sorts. So yes, we go about farming holistically, taking into principle that nature in itself has been a fundamental guide, and we mimic nature principles. So the whole issue of biological cycles in farming there is critical. The whole survival and the ecological balance of the farm, the life forces that actually support farming systems, your earthworms, your millipedes, your centipedes, all these in terms of the strata within the biota of the farm is critical to understand. The whole issue of the protection of wildlife and habitat, even within the farming system, we tend to pay minimal attention to that, because crop deprivation is a serious problem in Dominica. But at the same time, we have to understand that natural habitat protection is also critical even within the farming systems. So these are some of the kind of new paradigm shifts that we have to put into our new vision for farming in Dominica as we move along. And the advent of this COVID pandemic is just putting it in perspective. Because while everything was shut down, the farming system was still surviving, albeit we just coming out from a very intense drought. But the survival of the farm, even if the weeds were growing, was continuing. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Click.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dr. Casimir.
Welcome.